Go ahead. Let me take this left. Is this going to be a good question? I like to end on a positive note. Go ahead.
I don't mind to talk about like more of the young guard situation and I think it is really important to talk about that common ground for me.
Yeah.
To recognize and feel like if you do have common service now.
Yeah, she's asking more about the coalition. Well, it was just that, you know, as these things evolved, I remember the Brown Berets, and you remember there were two kinds of Chicano organizations operating in California. One was, of course, the Brown Berets as a young revolutionary group, but you also had the United Farm Workers, and we were very close to Cesar Chavez and the farm workers, and we loved them, and they loved us, because we understood that they were in the same fields in the same way that black people had been another century before. And it was so, our coalition with them, for example, United Farm Workers, was so tight that, this might seem very small, but at that time, black people, excuse me, would be constantly drinking a drink called Shake 'em Up, would be Gallo, a short dog of Gallo with, how you doing? A short dog of Gallo, a short dog of Gallo, short, thing of Gallo wine with, you put some lemon juice, they pour out a little wine, put some lemon juice, shake it up, and it would give you an instant thrill, you know what I mean? And now when they started boycotting Gallo, the grape fields in Gallo, we forbid people to drink Gallo, and we boycotted Gallo. Now that may seem small from the hood, but that's like saying, you're not going to smoke any weed today, okay? For some of those of you who indulge, for those not in this room, obviously, but for people that it was that big of a deal, though. So we always saw ourselves, even though we didn't really know Mexicans, do you know what I mean? Like in the sense that we weren't in the barrio, we weren't friendly with Mexicans on a personal basis per se or not. We didn't have that kind of thing. What we had was a principled coalition based on common ground issues. And not just that they were in the field, but because we knew who the common oppressor was, and that where we could support them, we did, and where they could support us, they did. But we also did the same things. In the case of the Young Lords, for example, in New York, each of us did different things based on our particular area. Like, for example, they started a free garbage pickup program. Well, that was more important than say, the free shoes in Chicago. Who cares? The bottom line was to show the people that they had to raise the consciousness, show the contradiction, that here's the government, it's supposed to be picking up garbage, it's not coming to the Puerto Rican neighborhood. So we're going to do it, not because we want to be the garbage collector, but because we want you to understand that you have a right to not have to live in this kind of squalor. You see what I mean? So those are the kinds of things that we did together, even though they weren't exactly the same. As I mentioned with the Young Patriots, they actually would have a free breakfast program and free breakfast and hoedown, as in, you know what I mean? So it worked. It worked, and I spoke to Iris Morales, and she was sort of my counterpart. When I was a Minister of Information, she was a Minister of Information for the Young Lords. So we all kind of know each other in a general sense, and we did the programs. We did the exact same kinds of things. We had a revolutionary ideology, but we just didn't. We worked in our respective communities. What would be the point of me going into a Puerto Rican community? A, don't speak Spanish, and B, you got that. You got it covered. So now I don't have to cover that. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that's why we thought. And it was really important when Slim Coleman put together the Young Patriots, and they would be in the poor white neighborhoods, as I said, people who really hated black people. But they began to work on questions of tenants' rights, and believe it or not, they formed a working coalition. And we always had a working coalition. Fred Hampton called it a rainbow coalition, which Jesse Jackson took out of his mouth and did something else with it. But we always had a revolutionary rainbow coalition. And so it was wonderful. And I think that has to happen again. And the problem I think people have is like they get involved in cultural things, like do we all like hip hop, or people today want to argue over these little stuff like, do you like some rapper better than some other rapper? Like and all this kind of superficial, totally ridiculous conversation about all based on YouTubing. And I like to tell young people the revolution will not be YouTubing. It's not going to be email, text message, or anything else. It's going to be done in real time, in real ways. But I think that the real way is to recognize that there are differences, and those differences can be celebrated, and some of them can be set aside. But the bottom line is, if you can't afford to eat every day, and if you can't afford to get medical care, and you understand what the reasons are, and that it does go to the class question, then you begin to cut away from some of the attitudes that you have about the small stuff, and you get to the main stuff. And I mean, I think it's interesting, the array of people that are here tonight. So I think this is an example of how, you know, naturally people are going to drift to each other. You know, I'm drifting toward the black women here because there's some stuff we just going to say because we know that stuff. You know what I'm saying? We just know some stuff. It's like the girl that had the bullet, somebody shot at her weed, you stopped the bullet. I was like, good God. It was unbelievable. And so, I mean, that's not going to necessarily go over with somebody else, but it goes over with us because, you know, we got all that because it's our thing. But that doesn't mean it's against somebody else. You know what I mean? You know, we got certain stuff that's just ours. It's like, you know, I can't even explain it any better than that. The one more thing I want to say, though, about when you mentioned the young lawyers, because we also work with Puerto Rican independence, with the Puerto Rican Socialist Party out of Puerto Rico itself. Because people are talking about Puerto Rico as a state versus Puerto Rico continuing to be a colony or whatever it is of America. And we also fought very hard, not fought very hard, we were very supportive of and worked hard with the Puerto Rican Socialist Party independence movement for the independence of Puerto Rico. So even though we were not Puerto Rican, because it is in our interest. Do you see what I'm saying? So we saw what was in our interest. It served our interest. It did not serve our enemy's interest. And so we thought that in the case of the young lawyers, we worked on all of that. I'm very proud to say that we did do that too, even though Puerto Rico is Puerto Rico. All right, children, thank you so much for all your attention.
Jermaine Dupree.
Oh my God.
Let's go
Let's see,
floor.
you're no fun. This is lame.
Floor,
We get another
floor.
one. No, we get another one.
Here, I'll do it.
Costume to act.
Yeah, man.
First one, right?